Well, at a time when Americans of many political stripes are questioning the reliability of CDC pandemic stats, where even New York Governor Andrew Cuomo wonders about the numbers and about the wisdom of political mandates shutting down free enterprise and commanding people to shelter in place, it appears that many folks are fed up, especially in Ohio, where hundreds just descended on the Capitol to protest the shelter-at-home lockdown of State Governor Mike DeWine. Well, it's starting, folks. Hi, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. In Michigan, a move to recall leftist Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer is gaining momentum and garnering publicity as residents rise against her authoritarian lockdown of personal lives, closure of business.
It is the time to intensify.
But some of the new restrictions on things like gardening supplies are being criticized as lacking in common sense.
And attack on the Second Amendment, as well as her double standards on citizen freedom to actually take hydroxychloroquine. And in Ohio, a lesser known but just as intense move by many residents just saw them defying the shelter-at-home lockdown of Governor and Republican Mike DeWine. On April 9th and 13th, crowds of disgusted and angry Ohioans took to the streets and congregated outside the state capitol. They stood up for the Bill of Rights and for their inherent natural rights that exist regardless of what a state or federal politician might say, chanting, "Open Ohio."
Open Ohio now! Open Ohio now! Open Ohio now!
Some carrying pro-rights, pro-constitution signs reading, "You will be held accountable for civil and constitutional violations," and "My constitutional rights are essential," calling for the resignation of Ohio Department of Health Director Amy Acton and demanding the revocation of DeWine's absurd edicts. The protesters were shut out of the building and pressed against the doors and windows. One videographer and protester actually saying,
"They're asking questions to the governor and Amy Acton, who's an unelected official who's basically running the state right now, and she's been throwing up a lot of bogus data or bogus information without really that data to back it up, and people are upset that she's running the state and they're out of jobs. They got businesses closing down. The food banks are empty. We got a lot of problems here in Ohio."
Indeed they do. As Jim Zaroli and Avi Schneider note for NPR, the state of Ohio has seen 694,777 unemployment benefit claims in the 3 weeks following DeWine's order. And the Buckeye state residents aren't just concerned with their finances. These protesters understand their rights, and they know that DeWine not only has no power to shut down businesses based on any reading of the Ohio Constitution, he's strictly prohibited from abridging the right of peaceable assembly. Not only that, DeWine and all state politicians are supposed to be bound by the strictures of the U.S. Constitution, where that document forbids certain state actions or strictly protects certain activities from state infringement. One easily could argue that DeWine's shelter-in-place mandate and his shutdown of what he deems non-essential businesses viciously contravene the Fifth Amendment's taking clause by forbidding use of private property, a business, for peaceful voluntary activity. His actions violate the same amendment's prohibition of punishment without due process of law. They violate the Sixth Amendment's supposed assurance of a speedy trial before a jury appears. They violate the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment, since, of course, there is no criminal activity. Therefore, any punishment would be both cruel and unusual. And they violate the 14th Amendment right here. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty or property without due process of law. Sorry, don't know how to read. Me no read. Me just do. You know, it's amazing that some Americans can not only nod in sheepish agreement as politicians behave this way, but that they can sneer at people like the Ohioans who are standing up for the dignity of mankind. But even as I think about that, perhaps the signal will get out a little bit more. And perhaps, just perhaps, some politicians at various levels will end up backing off. Perhaps they will see that as people worry about their health and their finances, they are also worrying about their rights. And perhaps the least these politicians can do is uphold the oaths they swore not to infringe on these rights. Hey, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. And if you have the opportunity, tell some friends about our videos, because as I've mentioned in previous videos, a lot of social media algorithms suppress things that have to do with individual liberty. And don't forget to visit MRCTV.org. And if you want some great MRC fashions, head over to MRC-Store. I hope you're all doing well. I'll be in YouTube in the comments section to communicate with you soon. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.